A bunch of Nightreign stuff went down. Previews, like everything. There is a Nightreign pre-order trailer. I haven't even watched this, dude. What the hell? Hold on a second. But we have to check out the previews desperately.
Seekers of redemption, you were chosen.
Is that the Elden font? The Elden font. Seen some familiar stuff in here, yeah. Are these likely the classes we're going to be using in the demo? What the hell is that thing? Oh, does this really not have crossplay? Is that confirmed to not have crossplay?
The life of the Night Lord.
Yeah, and May 30th, the release date. It feels like there's several other things dropping around May 30th. It feels like that's kind of a busy date for most of it, you know? Is this like Fortnite Elden Ring? Well, yeah, it seems that way, but we're going to take a look at a few things and just get a boilerplate understanding of what the hell's going on. Iron Pineapple's video. So we were checking out a few of these, and again, one of the bigger concerns we had about just the game in general and like what it's setting up for is the progress going to be interesting, right? Is the gear that we're going to get make you feel like different as far as a character? Does it make you feel like you have progression? Because that's the shit that made games like, at least ones that I played, Vampire Survivors and like Hades, feel so good that you're just now on this route with this different gear, and all of a sudden you're being thrust into a situation that's unfamiliar and unknown, and it's new and different, and now you have to like learn to sort of manage around that. Anyway, it all comes down to like all those minor details.
Change up how you play. My favorite was the
relic. So preview event details. Let's do this. I want to hear overall impressions, because we heard there's a lot of information on all the individual classes and stuff like that, and we'll talk about it, but there's only like 4 classes at the start for the network test, when there's going to be more in the final game.
Aside from that though, I did have fun. Well, I think most people would have fun if they were in my shoes and got to play a co-op game with Lobos and Oro. I do think FromSoft has something here if I was able to find the fun even in the worst of circumstances. Ultimately, I think this game will be a commercial success. The fun is there and it has Elden Ring's branding. Obviously, it won't reach anywhere near Elden Ring's success, but it doesn't have to, because my guess is that it only cost a fraction of Elden Ring's budget to develop. And of course it did. 90% of this game is just Elden Ring. And like I mentioned earlier, it feels more like an ambitious fan mod than a standalone product.
I never thought of it that way. Is that a good enough reason that this possibly could have been an expansion to the base game of Elden Ring?
Basically, I can appreciate that FromSoft wants to make a weird spin-off game on a smaller budget while giving someone who's been at the company since Dark Souls 1, Junya Ishizaki, the chance at directing their own game.
Yeah, that's cool. It isn't like the typical tenure. It's like folks that are not taking some of the mainline games like taking this. I have to throw in my 2 cents. It all depends on how it plays, right? I don't give a shit if it's reused assets. Like we've been looking at reused assets since Dark Souls 3, for God's sake. And Elden Ring, as much as people got introduced to the Souls series in Elden Ring is the ultra reused asset game, period. For anybody that has like tried a lot of these games and are familiar with them, it's just, oh yeah, I've done shit very similar to this and have seen shit very similar to this over the years, right? The reused asset thing comes from a perspective, I think, of somewhat misunderstanding, where people just don't understand like kind of how the industry works. And I get it, you want everything to be absolutely fresh, absolutely new, but almost no FromSoft games have been that way for like almost 10 years, dude. What's good about a reused asset project, it allows the developers to focus so hard on like gameplay and design, where it's like, hey, you know what? Well, now we don't have to worry about all this art and all this stuff, and we can put it into like a sandbox, much less this concept, and make this really turn into something very genuinely interesting and very different than what you had before, which is sick. Like that's to me, if that's worth it, then we're good. It has to be really good. You have to have something that is obviously going to be looking like Elden Ring and costing $40 on top of the DLC that you bought and the base game from the previous one. there has to be a substantially different experience there, you know?
All that being said, I was skeptical before I even played the game, though it wasn't coming from a place of cynicism toward the industry. It instead was coming from a place of love for the action roguelike genre and wondering if Elden Ring could fit into it. Basically, Souls-like combat is inherently simple, and its ability to be compelling depends a lot on other aspects of the game. Take Dark Souls, for example.
Yes. A reminder, even from people that are Souls fans, veterans, and it's like their bread and butter. I'm somebody that enjoys these games, but, you know, Bloodborne's like the second greatest game of all time, period, in my personal opinion. And you're not going to get me to absolutely defend tooth and bone to that game's combat. It's good. I like it, but it's all simple. The only one that tries to get a little bit more aggressive is like Sekiro, which very much leans into mechanical depth. But that's at a cost. You only have one weapon, you know?
So is this a complete success? I'm honestly not sure yet. I'm somewhat optimistic, but for me, a lot of it is going to depend on how much more there is to the full game. Because right now, based off what I played, I have some concerns and the full picture isn't clear. Most of my reservations stem from me being unsure of the roguelike aspects of the game and worrying that runs will feel too similar too quickly.
And that's the thing, right? Straight up, like runs, even if it is a demo, even in the demo, if the runs are feeling too similar in the network test or whatever these guys played, that's an issue. Straight up big problem. If you start like getting into the same exact pattern over and over again, you're not being fed some unique situation per game. Like that's the whole point of it, you know?
Starters, it's unclear to me how much the map will change between runs. For this demo, as far as I could tell, it didn't change at all. We would start at one of two locations, but then that was it. All the points of interest were in the same spot, and we'd fight the same enemies and bosses. Now, of course, I do recognize that this is almost certainly just for the demo, and that the full game will meaningfully influence the map between runs, but I need to see that for myself before I vouch for this game.
That isn't the previewer's fault, or maybe in a week, like our fault for feeling that way about what the game has to offer. Like a demo, games as an experience are entirely about setting up expectations. This is what we have to offer. Are you into it? Like the first impression you get from games is like so vastly more important now than ever before. And yeah, dude, I'll be real. If the demo sets you up for something that isn't that fascinating and it's like, yeah, I'll play this a couple of times, it seemed okay, then woof, you know, that's actually not a good call. I think that's not on the onus of like, you know, that's not our fault that we felt that way. That's actually the developers. They gave us a demo that might not have at least inspired the player base enough to like want to go forward, but still, you know, we haven't actually played it. This is based on one person, you know.
To put it another way, you know how in a game like Hades, you get multiple gameplay defining upgrades that massively shift your build or playstyle? That part of the game is inherently less present in Nightreign. Sure, you'll find a weapon that gives plus 9% damage when two-handing, but in terms of moment-to-moment gameplay, having or not having that boost isn't going to change how you play. The same can be—
And that's the part that kind of makes me concerned. Get excited about a 9% damage boost to your two-handing abilities. It's like, okay, yeah, that's not it, bro. What is something that would get you excited? If you're like, okay, so I have a two-handing weapon. What if suddenly they gave me like a new tiered ability that let me throw the goddamn greatsword? Like, who knows? Like, give me something crazy. Like, and all of a sudden, oh, now I have better stats and I'm able to throw the greatsword, something I can physically see the difference, how it works, how it moves, and where it can go, you know? Like, the best example of that in some of the other roguelites is when you get a move and it's like, hey, now that move's doubled. Now that move lasts twice as long. Now that move is tripled, quadrupled. Now if it hits one enemy, it hits all these other enemies. Like you literally see the effect in front of your eyes. And it's like, oh, wow, damn, 2, 4, 10. Like you actually can have an intangible difference of what the hell's going on. So yeah, that's concerning. That's concerning if like you're looking at stuff and the big difference is like a less than 10% increase, right?
Yes, leveling up lets you deal more damage, but the way you play doesn't shift between level 1 and level 2. And as someone who's played a lot of action roguelikes, this is a notable absence. Now, to be fair, not all upgrades are like this. Stuff like the passive that gives you a lightning attack when you dodge, or the relic that gives you group healing are meaningful changes.
And then what did he just mention? Exactly that, dude. things that you can tangibly see the difference. It's happening in front of us. It's giving us good shit, right? Like, I dodge and now there is lightning. Cool.
So I really hope the full game has more of that. And thinking about this issue some more, we shouldn't ignore all the weapons and spells. Elden Ring might actually be a fantastic game to turn into a roguelike, if only for the variety of weapons and spells already built into the game.
Yeah, we talked about this one earlier. A huge part of all of the shit that they put into this game, all the different weapons and abilities and like special moves and magic bullshit, dude, unused, completely unused. Like so many, you only go absolutely out of your way to use some funky ass whip or some shit, right? There's no reason for you to use that. That's what I want, man. Like I would love it to give me a whip that's godlike, and all of a sudden I have to learn how to use a whip. Oh shit. Like the last thing I want is to run in here and just be the great sword guy every single time. Everybody always talks about at the end of their roguelite runs how sick their build was and how it just felt like God was on their side. That's the shit that I kind of want. And Elden Ring's the best game for that because there's just so much of it that is absolutely unused. People never use that shit, man.
So yeah, maybe the leveling and passives being kind of boring is actually fine within the context of the rest of the game. Also, even if the player builds are limited when compared to other roguelikes, I think there's still a lot of potential for emergent gameplay.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like everything of the game is so much quicker, right? Like the movement, the interaction, like how you interact with the environment, like so much stuff is so much quicker. And then you watch the combat, Elden Ring. It's like identical. Like characters are obviously using some different abilities and shit, but the combat is just like straight up the same thing. The same sort of methodical, kind of slow paced like Elden Ring combat.
That being said, everyone doesn't share my tastes, and the audience for this game will be more niche than Elden Ring. I think people who aren't already fans of action roguelikes might not like it at all. On top of that, I do understand the cynicism toward the amount of recycled content a game like this has. So if that's off-putting to you, I get wanting to pass on this one. Truly, I'm not going to die on any hills defending FromSoft.
It's also kind of unfair to the game to completely judge it based on what they're showing us right now. It's not unfair to pass that judgment where it's just like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it because it was the devs that set this up, you know, for it to be that way, if that is the case. But at the same point, if it is genuinely super interesting and it's like, man, if they add more to this, it's just going to be so much better, then that's just cool, right? What I want is I want it to be fun. Like, I think this seems like a very interesting diversion for a game that is sort of daunting for me personally to try to dedicate another like 100 hours to or 60 hours to. And that's not exactly like a bad thing. It's just there's a place for this to exist. You know, I think there is a place for this to exist and do well. It just all comes down to how satisfying it is.
Think of it almost like a roguelike. Sometimes the synergy of weapon effects and stat upgrades you'll get will build off each other so well that you'll eventually start melting mobs left and right. Other times you'll want something like a poison build, only to keep getting weapons that increase your FP regeneration. Bummer.
And that's normal. Like, that's the normal route, right? That's just what happens in these things when you're trying to build around one thing and the game just isn't giving you what you want. That's normal.
Only rewards either. Oftentimes when looting a boss, you'll get to choose a stat upgrade or
So increase sorcery and incantation duration 30%. All right, that's a healthy boost.
Or a modifier. Some of these are less exciting than others, such as a 10% increase in physical damage.
Oh, so even IGN is saying the same thing, that like some of the upgrades just aren't super exciting. Ugh. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Yeah, no, get me wrong. 10% is a lot. It's the least interesting, dude. If you want something that's like tangible, or like, yeah, 100 damage is doing 110 damage. Sure, it's very good. But how about like, hey, we're adding 5 more frames of iframes to your dodge or some shit. Whoa, okay, damn. Suddenly I'm like the dodge lord. Here, let me take aggro. I'm the dodge lord. Like, there needs to be like actual tangible things, is all I'm saying.
While the day phases can feel like a walk in the park, it's the night bosses that serve as a real skill.
But if every upgrade is special, nothing is. Dude, there's 2 days. Like, straight up. These are the boss upgrades. There is 2 days. There's only 2 opportunities for you to get those big upgrades like that. That's it. So it isn't like you have to go through 8 bosses and everything is god tier. No. It's 2 days and then the final boss. There's mini bosses, but I'm not expecting the mini bosses to give you as big and as good of rewards as the mega bosses, right? The end of day bosses should be giving you something substantial. Like, it should be a big ass deal.
Each player will be rewarded with a relic that provides a persistent upgrade for your characters. These can range from simple stat increases to modifiers that will set you on a build path right from the jump.
Cool. Things that'll like get you started right at the beginning. Yeah. Okay, so there's like your perma upgrades.
In its current form, Nightreign could be seen as a little content light, so I'm incredibly interested to see how it shakes out when it releases sometime in 2025. But for now, it's been a few days since I've played Nightreign, and still, it's all I think about.
Yeah, dude, if it's just a captivating experience that you want to go back in and get new things to happen, then yeah, like that'll be great. Dude, I'm really feeling like I just need to play this, right? I'm starting to feel that like there are clear impressions from several different outlooks that are saying that it is really good, but it also feels like it is missing something. Let me check out Vadi's thoughts and concerns at the end. Hold on a second.
But as it stands, everyone I know had a blast playing this together, especially side by side in the same room with other people. It was just an unforgettable.
Yeah, it's almost cheating, right? Like having a LAN-based co-op experience is almost friggin' cheating. If we were able to get video games like all together, like in the same room playing this shit, it would be awesome. And of course, having people right next to you playing games is like one of the best experiences, especially if it's like a LAN thing, right? That'll definitely, and I like that even Vadi admits that that's a huge boon. No pun intended. That's a huge boon for the preview impressions, that you're literally talking to the people next to you about getting shit done.
They're going to start figuring out these maps and understanding the best route through, and it will become familiar to them, which I don't think is the intended experience for Nightreign. I suspect in the full game, and I hope in the full game, maps are really, really randomized, and no two playthroughs are the same.
It's funny, even Vadi has like similar concerns. It almost is sounding like this, the demo has like a lot of fun to be had in it. It's just that what they're setting up for as a game maybe isn't very well represented in what the demo is. I'm giving the devs the benefit of the doubt here, that like whatever their kind of high concept is for a like BR roguelite, you know, PvE BR roguelite situation really builds up to something much different, right? That is like a lot different than what you were expecting it to be. If it's not just the first couple of runs with a very limited amount of exposure to what they're putting together. Yeah, and I'm also very much wondering what in the hell the content is going to be like. Again, I'm not ready to like pull conclusions on this. It sounds like, at least from the preview impressions, it isn't a guaranteed sell, right? Where this is just like, oh, actually, this is the greatest shit ever. Elden Ring sucks. Nightreign, the best. You know, we're not getting that. We're getting something that is like cautiously optimistic, hoping that it's going to be cool, because it only can show you so much with what the demos have to offer. Either way, I'm playing it. We're playing it. We're going to check it out. I'm going to see what the hell it feels like. I'll be there at 3 a.m. It's like early Friday morning. Anyway, I'm still optimistic. It looks amazing. And that, if there's one thing that's good about this, is that it looks like it's running fantastically, at least from what we've seen so far.